Hello, guys, and welcome back to the FPL Duo. We are back for another stream. In this one, we'll be discussing fixtures and transfer tips for Game Week 8. So we hope everyone's doing well. Obviously, we've just had the international break. We had a week off. Football returns, Premier League football. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, how you doing, Jordan? How's your week going so far?
Yeah, the break away from Premier League football's been nice. I think now is the time though for it to come back. It's been long waiting, and we're about to wrap up. Obviously, the international window. Lots to talk about, I guess, but we'll start off with obviously the transfer tips and the fixtures for Game Week 8.
Yeah, let's look up the fixtures first. So the fixtures to target. So we've selected a couple teams that we are looking at. And these are the teams or the games that sort of stand out for Game Week 8. So first up, we've got Tottenham Hotspur. They've just come off the back of a draw, didn't they, in Brighton? Sorry, the loss they had.
Yeah.
I think it was 3-2 in the end, in a mad game. And yeah, I mean, I still think Tottenham is the team that we are looking at some of the assets as potentially looking to bring him into our teams. They've got West Ham at home. Now, they do need to bounce back from that sort of defeat they had to Brighton. Sorry, it was a draw, wasn't it? It wasn't a defeat.
Yeah, it was a defeat, 3-2. They lost.
3-2 in the end.
Yeah.
I can't remember that game now.
Yeah, it felt like a long time, but
it feels like a long time, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a defeat in the end. But I still think their players are quite good to bring in, some of them. So I still like the look of obviously Solanke as an owner myself. If you haven't got Solanke, I think he's a good pick. I also think the likes of Brennan Johnson, he's been on very good goal scoring form lately before the break, and he's a good pick. But yeah, what have you made of Spurs, Jordan? And what do you make of the assets, obviously, going forward into Game Week 8?
I mean, their results have been mixed because they've had tough games. They've played against Arsenal, Newcastle, and Man United. If you think that's a difficult fixture, even though they won 3-0. But yeah, I've liked the fact that Spurs are actually scoring a lot of goals in their games. Like, it's not just 1 or 2; they're scoring about 3 or 4 even in matches. And I think rather than looking at how well the form of obviously winning or losing Spurs are, I think it's more to look at who is scoring and who's getting these returns, because obviously that's what FPL is all about. And Brennan Johnson, just to clarify with people, because he did play yesterday in the Wales team against Iceland, and he did score again. So that's 6 goals for club and competition for Brennan Johnson. And these are the type of players we should be considered looking at in terms of FPL, because these guys are currently on form in any competition they're playing in for their club or the country. And for that, obviously, that fixture, West Ham have struggled. They've conceded a lot of goals so far. It's a bit unsure what direction they'll be going in. Obviously, it's a home fixture for Tottenham too, so definitely a fixture I think we should target players in.
Yeah, they are the early kickoff. Spurs at 12:30 on Saturday. Brennan Johnson is actually the second most transferred in player so far this game week, ahead of Game Week 8. Already 200,000 managers have bought him in. And looking at Spurs' fixtures as well, you know, West Ham this week, Palace after that, Ipswich as well in Game Week 11. So they've got a decent run of fixtures. And obviously we mentioned Brennan Johnson, Solanke. If you have a Pedro Porro or a Van der Ven, could be a decent option as well. As I think in terms of clean sheets, probably not. You don't expect many clean sheets from Spurs, but they are involved in games with a lot of goals, it seems. So, you know, you're looking at their games so far this season: 2-1, 3-1, 4-0, 2-1. Am I looking at the wrong one? Yeah, 1-1, 4-0, 2-1, 1-0, 3-1, 3-0, 3-2. So the games are, you know, a lot of goals. They've only had the closest game was a 1-0 loss to Arsenal. And apart from that, there's been 3+ goals in every game they've been sort of, you know, contesting. So yeah, they do. Their goals, the games are fun to watch, and I think that's good if you're an attacking player for you know, Spurs. You've got likes of Maddison, Brennan Johnson, Solanke. Those are the options that would be going for. Moving on to Forest as well. Obviously, they've got Palace next. In terms of the Forest assets, obviously Forest have started off the season pretty well. Chris Wood is a player that I had in my Game Week 1 team. He done quite well for me at the start, and Yeah, he's been quite impressive. Obviously, scoring 4 goals already so far this season. Scored again in the last game week against Chelsea, and he played 81 minutes. So if you've got Chris Wood, I think he's a good pick to hold for the next 3. Palace next for him at home as well, and then after that it's Leicester and West Ham. Is there any other assets, Jordan, apart from obviously Chris Wood, who's the popular one really that you'd go for?
Well, defensively, Nottingham Forest have been good this season. I mean, they've only lost one game, drawn or won the other games. But Ola Aina is another good option if you rather go defensive, if you can't fit in Chris Wood in your team at 4.5 million, 6% ownership. And the fixtures for Nottingham Forest are really good. The next 3, Crystal Palace, Leicester and West Ham. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Nottingham Forest can keep a clean sheet in all 3 of them, if not 2 out of 3. Judging by the way those teams have been playing so far, haven't really convinced me. And Nottingham Forest, on the other hand, though, keeping the clean sheet against Liverpool as well, especially.
Yeah, I was saying let's bring up the players as well on the slides of each team that we're looking to target. So, also we mentioned Brennan Johnson and Van der Ven already. Solanke is definitely, for me, one of the top standout players at Spurs as well that you want to target. Madison could be a good option. We've mentioned Ola Aina and Chris Wood already in terms of the Forest assets. They look like the more options that would be targeting if you want to get a cheap defender. I think Ola Aina is decent. There's other options as well, the likes of Ait Nuri as someone that I'm looking at bringing into my team as well. And then Everton is an interesting one. Obviously, they've got Ipswich away. Everton have started showing a bit better form. Obviously, they've had a pretty poor start to the season, but they still do score goals in their matches. And looking at their assets, McNeil has been quite impressive so far this season. 3 goals, 2 assists. Did get 2 goals against Palace as well for the 15-pointer. And that's now, Everton are now unbeaten in their last 3, which is quite good considering they lost their first 4. And their fixtures do slightly turn now. They've got a nice run of games: Ipswich, Fulham, Southampton, West Ham, and Brentford. So if you've got the likes of McNeil or even a Calvert-Lewin, which I own myself, I think those are the picks I'd be going for if I was owning, Everton. And I've got the picture of Ashley Young there, but just ignore that one. It is the attacking players that you'd want to go for, likes of Calvert-Lewin and McNeil, I think, or even someone like Harrison potentially as well, because I think he's got and just the assist. But I'd probably avoid Harrison at his price. I think there's better options out there. But McNeil is a decent pick. I mean, you've got him as well, Jordan. McNeil, are you quite excited to own him for the next fixture run?
Yeah, I bought him in last game when he had Spurs. Obviously, he did blank, but it was a tough fixture for Everton. But yeah, I see a massive turnaround now for Everton. As we mentioned, they've not lost their 3 games after them run of losses. So there is a massive, I think, term of form. I think the next 5 or 6, 5 fixtures for Everton look really good on paper. Especially, I think this is the time now to bring in like a Dwight McNeil or a Calvert-Lewin. Or if you want to go defensive, Ashley Young, he has got 2 assists so far this season. Maybe there's some attacker threat in the easy fixtures where he could provide something more than a clean sheet. But I think that's important as well. I think Everton will keep more clean sheets in this run of fixtures they have, despite not having kept, I don't think any, or I think 1, but if any, none so far in terms of results. But yeah, in terms of Everton, I think those 3 are probably consider. I wouldn't consider anyone else, but the attack definitely either Dwight McNeil or Calvert-Lewin or even both wouldn't be such a bad shout either.
Yeah, those are the standout options from Everton. They've got a decent fixture run. I own Calvert-Lewin myself, so we're excited to see how he can do. I also have Mikalenko, but again, he's probably one that I'll be taking out of the team because he seems to be injured all the time. But yeah, looking at some of the other fixtures, obviously looking at targeting now for the next 3 or 4 game weeks. I mean, one team that is an obvious one, I think at the bottom you'll see Man City. I think their next 3 fixtures look really nice. Wolves away, Southampton at home, and Bournemouth away. They're 3 games you'd expect Man City to win and win quite comfortably. So there is a question here, obviously, from Manish, Haaland captain against Wolves and Southampton. I think for the next 3, I probably will go Haaland captain, permacap. I don't see any other better option in those games. looking at the fixtures, I mean, I'll also bring up the FPL website and we'll do the FPL sort of fixture tracker on there because it does give a good view as well. So just bear with me while I bring that up, guys. The FDR sort of just one moment. Let me share my screen. There you go. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'll just zoom in for you. Zoom in a bit more. Well, if it lets me. There you go. So yeah, in terms of the fixtures, what I like the look of, obviously I mentioned Man City, but you're taking a look at Arsenal. They do have some tough games coming up as well. You know, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea in the next 4. There's 3 tough games there, especially considering 2 of them are away for Arsenal as well, going to St James Park and Stamford Bridge isn't going to be easy. I'll probably avoid Saka captaincy in those ones. Aston Villa have a semi-difficult run as well. Got Liverpool and Tottenham back to back in 10 and 11. Bournemouth probably don't really have any of the assets, so we'll ignore that for now. Again, they've got tough games, so you probably want to avoid Semenyo. I mean, it's someone that you probably want to bench in the next 3 games. Brentford, Mbeumo, again, he's a very popular pick. I think he's the most transferred in ahead of game week 8 currently, ahead of Brennan Johnson. Yeah, I mean, Brentford's fixtures look quite nice as well, Jordan, don't you think? I mean, what would you make of their sort of start to the season?
I mean, they're having a great run so far. I mean, the last 3 games they've scored within minutes or seconds of the game starting. It seems to be like a little trend going on for Brentford to score really early against teams. It will be interesting to see what they do against Man United away, if they can make it a 4th early goal in that fixture. But yeah, in terms of run of fixtures, I think they're really good. In particular, Mbeumo as well has become a class player in the absence of obviously Tony going and leaving the club. So he is pretty much the main guy, I think, for Brentford. I wouldn't be really looking at anyone else because he's just on fire at the moment. 3 goals in the last 3 game weeks from him and 6 goals this season so far. So yeah, 6 out of 7 for Mbeumo is not such a bad return of form for a midfielder. Yeah,
he's been a great value pick, and especially when you look at the next 6 fixtures, very happy to own Mbeumo, and I think he can carry on this form, which he's looked very good so far this season. Brighton, on the other hand, fixtures slightly turned. Newcastle, Liverpool, and Man City in the next 4. Brighton have been a bit up and down. They've had good games. They've had moments where they've not looked as good, some of the attacking players. But I think if you've got Welbeck, I still think Welbeck's a decent pick at the differential, and I still back him to score against some of the bigger teams even in these fixtures. So I still like Welbeck as a pick. Going on to Chelsea, their fixtures have turned again. So Liverpool, Newcastle, Man United, and Arsenal for the next 4. I think if you've got Palmer, you keep him obviously, and you just play him in the next 4. If you don't own Palmer, then I think you'll be looking to potentially, you could avoid him for the next 4 because the fixtures are tough. Now we know Palmer can return in any game. However, I do expect his return to come down considerably in the next 4 because the fixtures have turned. Liverpool at Anfield isn't going to be easy. So if I was on a wild card, I'd probably avoid Palmer potentially, but it is a tough one because obviously Palmer's been in great form as well, and Chelsea have looked a lot better this season. But I'd probably look to bring Palmer in now in game week 12. And I mean, see how it goes against Liverpool. If he goes and gets a haul against Liverpool as well, then it obviously makes it a bit harder to avoid him.
Yeah, especially after that 25-pointer in game week 6 where he scored those 4 goals in the first half. Ever since then, his ownership has shot up. Almost 50% of managers now own Palmer. So it is a bit scary if you're considering not going with him, obviously, from game week 8 till when you may look at game week 12 when he has Leicester away, avoiding those difficult fixtures. Hopefully, fingers crossed for those who don't bring Palmer in here, he doesn't really go crazy in terms of returning goals and assists.
Yeah. Looking at Palace, they've got Forest next. They looked a lot better in the second half. Obviously, first half, they struggled against Liverpool. Second half, they were just played better. But again, they've not been the same this season so far. I think they've struggled with the loss of the likes of Joachim Andersen at centre-back. They've lost Elise, 2 key players for them. But I think Palace can turn it around. Nketiah could be a decent signing for them. We'll have to see how it goes. But for now, I think you just want to avoid Palace. I'm not really looking at too many of the assets. We've discussed Everton already. Looking at Fulham, there's not really anyone I'd want to target for Fulham at the moment. Fixtures aren't too bad. Villa, Everton, Brentford, Palace, and Wolves next. What do you make of Fulham, by the way?
Yeah, they've been a bit surprised because we all picked at the start of the season. We thought Muniz was going to be a very good asset to own, but it seems like his teammate Raul Jimenez up front has sort of stolen the spotlight in terms of that forward position now for Fulham. And he's had 4 returns in the last 4. It's 3 goals, one against West Ham, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, and got an assist against Man City, which isn't such a bad thing, especially that tough fixture where they did lose 3-2 in the end. Could have won that game. And he only played 76 minutes as well. So he's not playing the full 90, Raul Jimenez, but he is getting the returns of when he is playing 70 or 80 minutes. But 3 goals and 1 assist so far. His turn of form has recently come from Gameweek 4 onwards, but his fixtures, like you see on the screen, were really good up until Gameweek 13. So at 5.6 million, could be another option that you could consider as a cheap forward other than Chris Wood.
There's also Smith Rowe, obviously, new signing for Fulham. He's had a decent start to the season. A lot of teams did start with Smith Rowe, and I think the next 4 or 5 games, not too bad to play a Smith Rowe if you need to. So Everton, Brentford, Palace, Wolves, I think these are easily games where you can play Smith Rowe in, and he could get you a return. Ipswich, again, will avoid for now, but there is the likes of Leif Davies you can go for, or Greaves. Fixtures aren't too bad for the next 3 at least.
Just to obviously on Ipswich, what do you think of Delap as terms as an option?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah,
because he scored 2 against Aston Villa and now just scored 1 against West Ham, even though they lost 4-1 against them.
Sorry, yeah, I've completely forgot Delap. I do think he's a decent option actually for those that need a cheap playing forward. I think he's 5.5, isn't he?
5.6 now. He's risen in price.
Yeah, I think he's a good option. Honestly, at his price, I don't think there's anyone better for around that. Obviously Chris Wood, etc., around 6.1 now. If you need someone around the 5.5, 5.6, he is the best pick to go for. Next 3 are decent games. You can see him scoring in those games as well. He's playing 5.5 million striker that will get you goals, so you can't really complain at his price point. If you want to take money at the forward position, if you're playing 3-5-2, you want to play Delap some weeks and bench him some weeks, I think it's a good option actually. Yeah. What do you make of it? Is that someone you'd get in as well at his price?
I mean, someone I've sort of looked at the price, but I think for the moment I'm going to stick with obviously other forwards. But yeah, I think for other players, teams where money's a bit of a stretch, that could be a good option to go for cheaper.
Yeah,
and he plays 90 minutes, obviously for Ipswich.
Leicester, there's not anyone really that I like at the moment. You can go for someone like a James Justin. Again, you may not get many clean sheets from Leicester, but he can get you attacking threat. Obviously, Vardy we've mentioned, but I don't think I'd go there yet at his price. I think there's better options at the moment still. So it's not really anyone I'm looking at from Leicester. Comment here from Elika as well. I'll get to that in a second. Good evening, lads, says Harry. Elika's in the chat as well. Good evening, lads. Hope you're well. Elika says, I'm keeping Salah for 1 more week to be able to get 3 free transfers. And what's your thoughts on Diaz? So I just left that for now because obviously we've gone to the Liverpool section. There's a couple of questions there about Salah and Diaz. So looking at Liverpool, we know their fixtures have turned. They've had a pretty good start to the season. I think it's fair to say only the 1 loss. And I think 7 wins now. Sorry, 6 wins and 1 loss. And the back-to-back games now against Chelsea and Arsenal. So we will see sort of what Liverpool are sort of made of in these 2 games. I think these are tough games. But it's going to be interesting to see how they get on. If you've got the likes of Salah in your team, which a lot of some people do have still, I'd be tempted to keep Salah personally. Because it's either you sell Salah and you bring in someone like a Palmer, because that's the only way I'd go, really. If you're selling Salah, someone like Palmer is where I'd go. But they play against each other. And if I'm backing Salah v Palmer against Liverpool and Chelsea, I think Salah's probably more likely to score, if I'm being honest. So it's a home game for Salah. So he has that advantage. He's also, obviously, we know he's on pens. We know Palmer, I believe, is on pen as well. So in that regard, they're both penalty takers. But I still expect Liverpool are the favourites in that game. So I'll expect Salah to have more of the upper hand in that game. But yeah, it's a tight one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, back-to-back games. Would you sell Salah if you had him right now?
No, I think I'd keep him if I had him right. Well, I do have him right now in my team. But yeah, if I did, I probably still would keep him in my team. Even though he has Chelsea and Arsenal away, he's still a player that can score in those tough fixtures. And I mean, going without Salah, I mean, I did it last season. Didn't go well for me. He's still highly owned as well, 39.1%. I still think he has a few returns in him in these next 2 games against Chelsea and Arsenal.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, in terms of Luis Diaz, the other Liverpool assets, is it time to move Diaz on? It's hard to say because I think he will start against Chelsea. But if I had Luis Diaz, I probably would sell. Personally, I've already sold Luis Diaz last week, and I sold him because obviously we knew he was getting benched, and we got the team news that he wasn't going to be starting. So I still think he's the first choice, but there will be rotation, guys. As I mentioned, I did say, even a couple of weeks ago, Gakpo is there that can play, and he did start that game against Palace, I think it was. So, but I'd expect Diaz, to come back and play against Chelsea and Arsenal. But then there's Champions League games, so I think Diaz is a sell. Unfortunately, I'll have to say he is a sell just because the rotation risk is there. Good pick, obviously, for those who have had him from early, who benefited from all the goals he scored. He had a few big returns already this season, a couple of braces he scored. But I think now probably the time I'd look to get rid of Diaz for someone like Mbermo or someone like that around that 7 million mark. But Salah, I think you could probably just keep him. I don't know if it's worth switching Salah to Palmer this week, unless you've got both, obviously, happy days. But I don't know if I'd do the Salah to Palmer switch yet. I'd wait to see what he does against Chelsea and then go from there. And also another thing that a lot of people don't know, Salah didn't play in the Egypt game because he was actually sent home early because there was worries about the pitch condition. So the manager just let him have it off. So he basically got a week's rest. So he didn't really have the international fixture. So Salah is fresh and ready, as well as Van Dijk. Because Van Dijk also was sent home because he got the red card in the first game. He misses the second game, so he's got an extra rest. So that's one thing maybe it could benefit from Salah from having an extra week off when he's not really had much traveling to do. We mentioned Man City, good fixtures. Haaland captaincy for me, locked in for the definitely the next 2. I'd probably say the next 4 as well. And then when it comes to play Tottenham and Liverpool, I'll consider it. But I think I'm going perma-cap Haaland for next 4. What's your thoughts on Man City, Jordan? Obviously, they drew to Newcastle, which they could have lost. They beat Fulham, and they easily could have lost that one as well because obviously we saw Adama Traore should have, had a couple of goals in that match. Their defense has looked a bit, suspect in the last one, but we know their quality, we know what they're capable of, and we know what Haaland could do. Are you sticking faith for the captaincy on Haaland for the next 4?
I mean, considering he's blanked every time I've captained Haaland, I'll still keep the faith of him for these next fixtures because there are fixtures that you expect Haaland to get a return in. I would be very surprised if he doesn't get one, especially against Southampton at home. If he still manages to blank against that fixture, then maybe there's some questions to be answered when he has Bournemouth and Brighton after that. But for the meantime, he definitely is a captain pick. I wouldn't go against him. I've done that before. It hasn't really paid off for me. So I'm with the same agreement of perma captaining Haaland until the fixtures change. And obviously with Man City missing Rodri as well, it hasn't looked as as a Man City finish in terms of the games. So since Arsenal drew Man City, and then obviously drew against Newcastle and just about won against Fulham. Their form hasn't been great in the last 3. They're just about managing it, just about. And obviously Haaland blanking in the last 2 is a bit questionable, but I think he still will get a return in the next 2 at least. Yeah,
we'll have to see next 2, see how Haaland goes because I do expect big things from him in the next couple of games. Man United, again, not very popular in terms of assets. I don't think we own any assets ourselves. Obviously, Man United coming off the back of the draw to Villa. Brentford at home is a tough game, I think, for Man United. I think Brentford have shown this season they're very good. And Burma's on fire. West Ham, Chelsea. So Man United fixtures do slightly turn in terms of the fixtures. They are a lot better on paper. Leicester, Ipswich after that, Everton. So there's some nice games where you can see Man United winning these games. But there is pressure on Man United to win these ones as well. As we know, they've had a poor start to the season. But at the moment, I think if you've got any of the assets you want to avoid, is not someone I'm looking to bring in, to be honest. Newcastle, Chelsea and Arsenal back-to-back in 9 and 10. So I'd probably hold off the Newcastle assets at the moment. Isak, I think he's still injured, isn't he?
Yes, he's still injured with his broken toe.
Yeah. So there's not really anyone I'm looking at Newcastle at the moment. Gordon's there. I think Harvey Barnes could be a decent shout, but again, I want to give it a bit more time to see what he does before I bring in Newcastle assets. Forest we've discussed already. Southampton, not really anyone I'm looking at, to be honest. They're one of the teams you probably want to target this season. Leicester next for them, Man City, Liverpool in a couple of weeks. So yeah, probably avoid their assets. We spoke about Spurs, Solanke, Brendan Johnson, Madison, all good picks. You can bring in Porro for attacking returns. Van der Ven, if you need a cheap defender at 4.5. West Ham, interesting. They've had a decent win, but again, they've had a struggle sort of start to the season. What do you make of their assets? I mean, is there anyone you're looking at really at the moment?
No, I mean, even though that 4-1 win looked very convincing for West Ham, but again, Ipswich do sometimes have a little moment of they do letting a few goals in, and I think West Ham did take advantage of that in that game, but I don't see that happening in the next two when they have Spurs and Man United. I still think they'll just revert back to their old performances of not really getting good results, conceding a lot of goals, and be very surprised if I see a goal from maybe Bone or someone in that team, but I definitely wouldn't be looking at any assets there.
Yeah, Tottenham and Man United next, so not the easiest of games. Forest, Everton after that. So yeah, I'd probably look to avoid West Ham, reconsider once they show a bit of form, the likes of Bowen, if he can sort of get a run going. But yeah, for now, or Kudus, if they can show something over a consistent sort of couple of games where they look good. And then we got Wolves. Again, they concede a lot of goals. They've got Man City next. It's a tough game for them. Haaland, for me, is prime captaincy in that game. They let in a lot of chances, conceding a lot of goals against Chelsea already, and even in other games where they've looked quite poor defensively. So we look to avoid Wolves' assets. The only Wolves asset I like is actually Ait-Nouri, the defender.
Yeah.
Now,
I was about to ask you, would you consider at least an Ait-Nouri just in case?
So I was just going to say I'm definitely considering him as a pick. I might actually bring him in myself this week and bench him because I've got. I'll come on to my transfer tips. I'll discuss my plans. But Ait-Nouri is a player. I think he's 4.4 million, and he's a player that's actually getting you returns on a consistent basis. So yeah, he's 4.4 million. Now, don't bring him in expecting clean sheets because he's not going to get you any really. He's conceding a lot of goals, as you see, 5 to Brentford, 3 to Villa, 6 to Chelsea as well. But in regards to all of that, he has just picked up back-to-back 9-pointers against Brentford and Liverpool in 2 losses. He scored against Liverpool, got a goal and an assist against Brentford as well, scored against Chelsea. So he's on 2 goals and 2 assists for the season in 7 matches, which is a pretty good return considering he's only 4.4 million, starts and plays every game pretty much. He's only been subbed off after 60 in the first couple of games, but usually the 90-minute man. Fixtures against Man City again is a tough one, but after that, decent run. I expect him to get you goals and assists, and he's one player that I think if you're on a wild card, 5th defender, or if he's a bench defender where you play every now and then when the fixtures turn good, I think he's a great pick. So he's one I'm looking at myself.
I think even for that Man City fixture, because we have seen the pattern, Man City will concede at least 1 goal. And it won't be a surprise if Ait-Nouri is part of that 1 goal, whether it's with an assist or he scores it himself in that fixture. So, yeah, again, don't rule that out, guys. Maybe there is something for Ait-Nouri in that Man City game.
Yeah, he's definitely one I think is worth it at his price. Best 4.5 and under defender for me in the game. So, yeah, one to watch, guys. And Harry also says transfer plans are Jackson to Solanke and Trent out for another defender, but haven't decided yet. So yeah, Trent, we haven't really discussed much on Trent. I mean, thoughts on Trent? I've sold him myself. I sort of regret it, and I don't regret it as well. So he scored. I don't know if you've seen his goal. Great free kick for England. He's been a bit unlucky in terms of not having the attacking returns he should have had so far this season, but it's sort of hard to fit him and Palmer and Haaland all into the same team. What's your thoughts on Trent if you are an owner?
Yeah, I quite understand that because I can't fit Trent into my team because I've got Palmer, Haaland and Salah in it. So it's a bit of a squeeze to fit Trent in there. If I'm honest, I would love to have Trent in the team. I just think it's worth the money, as we mentioned before.
Yeah.
Because I've currently got Robertson, but I definitely down the line want to upgrade to Trent when the fixtures obviously do turn for Liverpool. I think at the moment, maybe I can go without him, but I think he's still a good asset if you still have him in your team. But he's one to look out for. When the fixtures change for Liverpool.
Yeah, as you guys know, I reluctantly sold Trent. I didn't really want to sell him, but I had to prioritize whether I wanted Palmer, and he was a player that at his price had to go. But I will be bringing Trent back in once I sell Saka or the other premium I have, because as you can see on my team, I've got Saka, Palmer at the moment, as well as Haaland. So once I get rid of one of Saka, Palmer, which probably will be Saka when the fixtures turn, I will try bring Trent back in. But again, I'll have to see how it goes, because obviously I think Trent is going to get you points, and there'll be weeks where he might not get you a clean sheet, but he gets a lot of bonus as well with Trent. He does usually get bonus points, even if he doesn't really get assists because of his passing and things. And I think he will get you the odd double-digit haul every now and then as well. So it does worry me that I've sold him, but I'm hoping Palmer matches him at least for the next couple of games. But yeah, that's it from us, guys, for the transfer tips video. If you've enjoyed the content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Want to say a big thank you, guys, to watching. We're back again on Thursday for transfer tips, so make sure you do tune in for that one. Should be a good video. Then Saturday, as usual, deadline stream. Anything else you'd like to add, Jordan?
Just thank you guys for watching. Hopefully enjoying the little break we've had so far, but now we're getting back into it. But yes, until Thursday for the team selection, we'll see you then. Take care until then. Enjoy the rest of your week.